Hello and welcome to Sharing the Light. I want to thank you for joining us today. Today we are joined by the senior pastor of the Sunshine Cathedral, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins. And today we're looking at God in and beyond religions. God in and beyond religions. So where do we begin? We're going to be with the in part or the beyond part?
I don't know. There are so many religions in the world. And so much conflict in the world has been blamed on religion. Now, there have also been conflicts between families, and there have been conflicts about economics, and there have been conflicts about government, how much government, should we have big government, small government. And so all the social institutions, you can find conflict. There's been a conflict around education, should you homeschool, public school, private school. So there's lots of conflicts in all of the social institutions, but there's been really a lot of bloodshed over religion that somehow if you can convince yourself that a deity wants you to rule the world, then the people who oppose you are not just opposing your idea, they're not just not wanting to be overrun or overpowered by you. They are defying God. Well, those infidels have to be stomped out, obviously. And so there's just been so much bloodshed and heartache over religion, and even beyond colonization, beyond war, just the idea of missiology. Not just that we're going to go and help someone. They've had a famine. Let's go help them with food, because ours is a God of love, and our loving God would want us to help our human neighbors wherever they are and whatever they're suffering. But the idea that we have to go convert people from their religion to ours, which also usually means converting them from their culture to ours, from their value system to ours, it's a way of colonizing their minds. It's an imperialism of the mind, an imperialism of the soul, and there's some violence in that. And then that violence, there's some karma with that violence, because when people buy what we're selling at a certain point in time, and then we change, and they don't change when we change, then they're upset because we've become too liberal or whatever, and they're the defenders of the real faith that we shoved down their throat to begin with. And so we see that with a lot of homophobia in the global South. That we sold a very homophobic religion in the 19th and early 20th century to people. Now, as religion in the West is struggling to be less homophobic, less hateful, more enlightened with scientific understandings of the diversity of human sexuality. People who bought what we were selling 100, 200 years ago are opposing that, saying, well, but you taught us, the Bible said this, and God wanted this, and now you're trying to change the rules, and we're not having it. And we see a lot of violence being done to gay and lesbian people. And that's sort of we're reaping the harvest of our own religious imperialism or colonization in that way. And so religion can be dangerous. Religion has been misapplied. Religion has caused a lot of pain, and all in the name of God. And so to clean some of that up, it's a big task. It will take our entire lives and 20 generations beyond our lives. But we have to start. We have to start dealing with it. And that is to say, really, is that what religion was for? Was religion to create hate and discord? Or was religion supposed to help us survive? Was religion supposed to be something that bound us together as a tribe, as a village, as a community, as a nation? Was religion supposed to be one of those things that bound us together in community for safety, so that we could help take care of each other, so that we could believe that together we were something more than we'd be apart, and that there was something beyond our experiences, especially if experiences were difficult, that there was hope beyond those difficulties? Is there some wonderful purpose of religion? And can we identify that and get back to that? So that religion will be what it's intended for, our survival, and instead of a weapon that we use against other people, which has actually gotten in the way of surviving and thriving. And so I think what we want to do is we want to look for God in our religion, whether we're Christian, Muslim. Now, I realize there are some religions that are non-theistic, like Buddhism. So instead of God, you would say ultimate reality, or holiness or whatever, but the vocabulary is your own. But we need to look for the holy, for the sacred, for the ultimate meaning, for the ultimate reality, for what is really real to us. We need to look at that in our religion, whether we're Buddhist or Hindu or Christian or Jewish. And then we need to see how we can see holiness in the other person's religion. Mm-hmm. You know, once we start thinking that God is limited to our humanly constructed religion, we pretend that God made up our religions. But we made them up. God didn't need religion. God was fine. So once we can see that that God is in our religion, then we need to see that God is in the other religions, or if not God, sacredness or holiness or whatever it is that fits with our vocabulary and philosophy. And then we need to understand that even that there are some people who aren't religious, and there is God beyond religion. There was a Greek poet, an ancient Greek poet, Epimenides, who said, "It's in God that we live and move and have our being." Luke in the book of Acts quotes Paul quoting that poet. Mm-hmm. It's in God, I believe that's Acts 17:28. In God we live and move and have our being. That implies an omnipresence, that there's not a spot where God is not. Mm-hmm. That whatever is ultimately real, the energy of life, the web of existence, the spirit of life, it has to be everywhere fully present. So whatever it is that I'm calling God, that the Zoroastrian is calling Ahura Mazda, that the Buddhist is calling Buddha nature, that the Muslim is calling Allah, whatever that the Wiccan is calling the goddess, whatever we think of as being divine has to be, if we believe it's omnipresent, then it has to be fully present, everywhere fully present. We act like we're here and God's over here. Actually, we act like we're here and God's up there, like we're still living in a flat earth, and God's heaven is just above the flat earth. And we pray like that, we talk like that. You know, we're lifting up people to mm-hmm. God in prayer, we'll say. But if it's in God that we live and move and have our being, then God is everywhere fully present. God is as present to the Hindu, and as present to the atheist, and as present to the Wiccan, and as present to the Jewish person, as present to the Catholic and to the Protestant. God is as present because there's not a spot where God is not. And so to get beyond the violence that we've done in the name of religion, we have to see that God is in our religion, God is in their religion, and God is beyond religion. That God was here before there was religion, mm-hmm. and the whole purpose of religion was to help us be in communion with God. We could do that with science now, also. We could do that with poetry, with the arts. We could do that with nature. There's lots of ways to do that, but one of the ancient ways of connecting with God is religion. And but that was about our understanding, mm-hmm. because God never went anywhere. Mm-hmm. Who was it that said, was it Meister Eckhart, the Middle Ages Christian mystic, who said, God has always been here. It's we who went out for a walk. Mm-hmm. And so religion is sort of calling us back home to God. And if we'll have that understanding that religion can be positive and wonderful and beautiful, but it can't be something where we think we have a lock on God. If God is no bigger than our religion, then we've just made our religion an idol. Mm-hmm. We've locked God into that idol, and idolatry is always limiting. And so we want to see God in and beyond religions.
You've been talking a lot about religion. Help differentiate between tradition and religion, because I think a lot of times people get caught up in God is in my tradition, so therefore my tradition is my religion. So maybe just a word or two about the difference, about how how those two things are really different and are the same.
Traditions are always more than we think they are, because we think this is traditional. I like this because this is my tradition. There's more to that tradition than we usually realize. There's some things from that tradition that have fallen away that we didn't realize. Do you remember the story of the woman who she would always lop off the end of her roast when she would bake it, and her son said, "Why do you always lop off the end of your roast before you stick it in the oven?" She said, "Well, because my mother always did." She said, "That's how you do it. You lop off the end." And so he asked his grandmother, "Why do you and Mom always lop off the end of the roast before you bake it?" And the grandmother said, I don't know why your mother does it. I do it because that's the size of my pan. So it was a functional thing in the beginning,
to fit into
but then it became a tradition. But people forgot the thing. The same thing with those beautiful kneeling rails at communion. You go up and you kneel for communion, and that's the way we've always done it. Well, in the beginning, those were gates to keep chickens and dogs away from the altar.
Right.
Sometimes things happen for a very functional reason. In the very ancient times, in tabernacles, and where there'd be cedar walls and incense everywhere, and of course we spiritualized that. The incense is prayer rising to God, because we live on a flat earth and God's right upstairs. But the real purpose is that when you're slaughtering pigeons and bulls and goats in the summertime in the desert in an indoor space, that can get pretty gross pretty fast. And but incense then can help cover up that stench. So there's always the stoles that people wear. That's the yoke of Christ. The burden is easy, the yoke is light. Originally, it kept your neck warm in the wintertime. So all of these things, we spiritualize them, they become traditions, but we lose